What a great way to start our day with a smile. Be excited and just be open because we have prepared many things for you guys that you will surely learn and enjoy. Part of our preparation as a group, we have disseminated several of our copies of our readings to other leaders that will serve as their references for today's presentation. And since we have provided you guys with the sources, I do hope that you will participate in the class discussion later on, okay? Alright, so I believe that everything is ready. Just before we start with our presentation, we will be having an activity. Isn't it exciting? Okay, so this activity will serve as our icebreaker and will also help us understand the presentation later on. For we are a strong believer that learning should be exciting and meaningful. So now the activity that we have provided you guys is called Guilty or Not Guilty. Now I want you all to listen carefully to the instruction, okay? So here's the mechanics of the activity. The class will be grouped according to their topics, and since we have already our group, we'll just have to stick on that, okay? So I believe that we have 5 groups that will be participating in this activity, excluding our group. And once you have your group, you will choose one representative from your group that will answer or represent your group, okay? Alright guys, here's the thing. There will be 4 pictures that will be presented on the screen, and then each group will task to guess what specific word would fit with the theme of the photos presented. Okay, so this is kind of similar to the 4 picks 1 word mobile game if you're familiar with that. And any group who will be the first to guess the word correctly will gain the points. Okay? Now the groups who will have the greatest points, of course, they will be the winner. And for the losing teams, they will be the teams that will frequently be asked by the reporters during the presentation. Okay? So the technical team of our group will be the one to present the pictures on the screen, and the representative that you have chosen will be the one to guess the correct word. And I hope that everything is crystal clear, okay? So are we ready? So if we are ready, then we'll start with our activity. Good luck, everyone! Right, so earlier was a fun and meaningful activity because we've got to discover different terminologies. Just take note of those words because later on we will be encountering those terms. One of the words that you have discovered earlier was the word language. You know what? Language has always been incorporated with the evolution of humanity as an intellectual beings. Through the advent of technology and the influence of colonization, human language changes and eventually they become more complex. If then, the only language that humans speak is just their native language, but now it's different. They were exposed to various languages that later become part of their daily lives. The Philippines, for instance, is a multilingual country because it has over 170 languages present. With its rich and numerous languages, conflict came along the way. Now, as a response, the Philippine government proceeded to institutionalize policies and memorandums in order to maintain harmony and balance. Later on in this discussion, we'll have to discover several policies that's governing the use of language in the Philippines. Okay? But before that, allow me to present to you guys our learning objectives. At the end of the presentation, the students will be able to distinguish the evolution of various language policies in the Philippines through individual participation. Second will be demonstrating their knowledge and understanding of each language policies by making a critique paper. And lastly, to evaluate each language policies and its relevance to pre-service teacher in school setting. And now for a comprehensive discussion, please be participative and listen attentively to the presentation. Okay? Happy learning, everyone!
Good day everyone, I am Stephanie B. Morillo and I am your facilitator for today. And now I'm going to discuss the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Like, what is it all about? What is the significance of the 1987 Philippine Constitution in relation to language? Wherein, according to Gazette, the official journal of the Republic of the Philippines, the Philippine Constitution has been revised many times, in which the first Constitution is not yet completely accomplished, and that was called the Malolos Constitution. And it was drafted and adopted by the First Philippine Republic in the year 1898. And it was sanctioned by President Emilio Aguinaldo. And as the time goes by, it was being issued by President Corazon Aquino and now became the 1987 Philippine Constitution of the Philippines. And it came into full version. Now, let us move on to the policies governing the language used in the Philippines, wherein it was being emphasized here that the 1987 Philippine Constitution is expressly defined Filipino as the country's national language. Thus, it also stated in Section 7 that Filipino and English is the official languages of the Philippines when it comes to communication and giving instructions. But in order for other regions to understand it, it was being mentioned in this section that it can be translated to other regional languages. Say for instance, when pandemic started, we are adopting the e-learning, and in public schools, the DepEd provided a module and the role of educators are printing a number of copy of it. But there are some module was being translated in Cebuano, Hiligaynon, and others, depending on what region they belong. In that manner, it is very easy now to each region because it was being translated according to what region they belong. Moving forward to the challenges in the implementation of language policies in the Philippines. To sum it up, language that we have is very important to be preserved and improved because it was being written in the 1987 Philippine Constitution under the Article 14, in which, according to G. Flores 2020, language codifying is only one aspect of language preservation, and language awareness is just the beginning. It will take a lot of structural changes and institutional assistance to keep our regional and indigenous languages alive. It also doesn't rely only on our indigenous languages, cultural workers, and researchers. And we, as an audience or learners, we should do actions that support the preservation of our indigenous languages, whether we realize it or not. That's all my report. May I pass the floor to Mr. Silvano.
Department Order Number 25 Series of 1974, or also known as the Implementing Guidelines for Policy on Bilingual Education. In the Philippines, bilingualism is a result of American colonization. It is a country where Filipino and English were widely spoken. Both are official languages with important social function. Speaking today is Mark Anthony Silvano, and I am your facilitator for today's presentation. So, I have just provided you guys with a bit of a historical background about bilingualism. So can any one of you share your idea or thoughts about bilingualism or what bilingualism means? Alright, thank you so much for sharing your ideas about bilingualism. For us to have a concrete idea on what this term is all about, allow me to give you an idea on this, okay? So the term bilingualism is defined as the native mastery of two languages. That is according to Moreno 2009. And to support this idea, Miranda 2012 describes a bilingual individual. She cited in her study about insights on bilingualism that bilingual person or a bilingual individual is someone who is well versed and utilizes two languages, or more specifically, one who speaks, reads, or understands two languages equally well. Okay? Now, on the other hand, bilingual education, as defined by Albay in her study about issues on bilingualism, it is teaching academic content that involves two languages. So basically, Bilingual education involves two distinct languages with its unique structure that are being applied as a media of instruction to any academic activities with its specific scope of subject. Okay, I hope that it's clear to everyone. Okay, so at this point, since we have already an understanding on what is bilingualism or what it's like to be a bilingual individual and also the definition of bilingual education, I'd like to go over and present to you what is really the Department Order number 25 series of 1974, or also known as the implementing guidelines for the policy on bilingual education. Now, starting with its definition, according to the Constitution of the Philippines, it was stated there as the separate use of Filipino and English language as a media of instruction in specific learning areas. Now, in some cases, this is misinterpreted because it was believed that the two languages are used at the same time in academic content, but it's not. Okay, because English and Filipino has its own scope and limitation. As stated in Department Order number 25 series of 1974, Filipino language is used in social sciences, music, arts, physical education, home economics, practical arts, and character education. Whereas English language is allocated for science, mathematics, and technology subjects. Now, being able to lay down its content, what do you think is the relevance of bilingual education? Anyone from the group? Alright, thank you so much for sharing your ideas. I highly appreciate that one. One of its advantages, according to Howard et al. 2005, students who are under the bilingual education programs excel more compared to their peers in standard achievement tests. So basically, being able to speak and understand two languages are of great help with students. This reflects the aim of its policy, which is to promote excellent quality of education. So Filipino and English should be taught in order to achieve bilingual excellence. Now, in line with this idea, the Department Order present that the regional language will be served as the supplementary media of instruction. Okay, by the way, what are the regional languages? Can you give an example of regional languages? Alright, what you have just mentioned earlier is an example of a regional language. So this only means that regional languages will be used when necessary or needed, okay? In fact, regional languages will be allocated in grades 1 to 2, okay? I hope that's clear for everyone. Again, I highly appreciate your cooperation for this discussion. Now to continue, earlier I was able to give you or provide you with a bit of historical background on bilingualism. Now, I will provide you with some points that pertain to the historical background of this policy. Okay? First, on 1973, Filipino and English were declared as media of instruction and for communication. Actually, before Filipino, the word Filipino, capital F, it was before Pilipino, the capital P. But it was later changed into Filipino, and from then on, English and Filipino became the official language of the country. Okay? And on 1974, the bilingual education was being implemented. This is in accordance in the declaration of English and Filipino as the official language of the country. And in 1974, this was also under the Marcos administration. Okay? And on 1987, the Department Order number 25 series of 1974 were reaffirmed. Okay? By the way, who is the first woman who became the president of the Philippines? Exactly! Corazon Aquino was the first woman who became the president of the Philippines, and during her time, the Constitution of the Philippines was revised, but the Department Order Number 25 Series of 1974 was remained and reaffirmed. Okay? Alright, so I hope that we're learning so far. Actually, we're getting there, okay? Now that we have presented its content and the historical background about this policy, however, the same with other policy, this one also faces issues and concerns. First on the list is the level of awareness of information in the regions. According to Albay 2013, there is a widespread of misinformation and misunderstanding of the bilingual education policy. Okay, so as you have remember earlier, I was able to share or present to you that there's also a misinterpretation of this policy, and that's because the level of awareness of information was not being so high enough to inform everyone about this one. So as a response of the government, they should create a system monitoring or a follow-up, and this means that there should be a seminar or workshop especially on the policy of the bilingual education. Okay? Secondly, attitude and opinions regarding their national language and their native tongues. There were certain regions who responded positively, but there were also exhibited negative feedback. Now, in order for us to address, or in order for this one to be addressed, one of this resolution presented was to have a massive information campaign. This is for us to instill language awareness and inculcate the pride in the regional language as well as in the Filipino language. Okay, so those are the issues and concerns about the bilingual education policy and its proposed resolution. So just like any policy, its aim is to improve and enrich our abilities, and it is also for our own benefit as well. Although this policy wouldn't be operationally successful if it's not followed religiously. And I do hope that we're learning and we're getting something, okay? Now for further discussion, please stay tuned and be open, for there is more.
The benefits of being bilingual go beyond the ability to communicate in other language. Bilingualism gives us a broader perspective about the world. To have another language means to possess a second self. Good morning, everyone. I am Mary Christ Dancing, your facilitator. And for today's lesson, we will discuss the Department Order Number 53 Series of 1987 Constitution, the 1987 Policy of Bilingual Education, the language provision of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines are embedded in Article 14, Section 6 and 7, provided the legal basis for the various languages policies that are implemented in our country. Now let's talk about bilingual education. It is the process of teaching students using two languages. Educators usually teach their students in their native language in conjunction with a second language, depending on the requirements specified in the lesson plans and teaching method. According to Chief Justice Horace L. Nichols of Georgia, bilingual education includes any form of instruction in nation school system where the native language is partnered with another language for the classroom use. Schools are obligated to take sufficient steps to assess non-English speaking students to overcome the linguistic barriers in the classroom. The National Board of Education states that the bilingual education in the Philippines separate the use of Filipino and English as the media of instruction in any specific subjects. Philippine Bilingual Education Policy, the national language. The decision to have a national language dates back to the time of our former President Manuel L. Quezon, who took the initiative and leadership in bringing about the national policy and decision on this matter. He issued Executive Order Number 134 in 1937, proclaiming the adaptation, development, and the use of national language. The National Assembly, the law-making body at the time, created the National Language Institute in 1936, which after due to the study recommended the Tagalog will be the basis of our national language. On August 30, 1959, the use of Filipino as the official name of the national language was declared by Secretary Jose E. Romero through the Department of Education Order No. 7. In the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, the law mandates that the national language of the Philippines is Filipino. The change of letter P to letter F was based on the alphabet developed by the Institute of National Language, which increased the number of letters from 20 to 28, including the letter F. The Philippine Bilingual Education Policy, consistent with the 1987 constitutional mandate and a declared policy of the National Board of Education on the bilingualism in the school, Department of Education, Culture and Sports promulgated its language policy. The policy was first implemented in the 1974 when the Department of Education, Culture and Sport issued the Department Order No. 25 Series of 1974 entitled Implementing Guidance for the Policy of Bilingual Education. Subsequently, Department Order No. 53 Series of 1987 entitled The 1987 Policy of Bilingual Education aims at the achievement of the competence in both Filipino and English. The policy statement also emphasizes that the aspiration of the Filipino nation is to have its citizens possess the skills in Filipino to enable them to perform their duties and responsibilities as a Filipino citizens, and in English in order to meet the needs of the country and the community of nations. Within this context, the following have been identified as the goals of bilingual education policy. Number 1 is enhanced learning through two languages to achieve the quality education. Filipino and English shall be used as a media of instruction. According to Catherine Young, in her article, First Language, First Literary Education for the Future in the Multilingual Philippine Society, that was published in 2010. This alternative ideological model of literacy is proposed, which develops the critical thinking skills of the students, build their cognitive and affective domains, and values their local language, experience, and culture. Thus, by the first establishing the empowering rule of language in the social system of the students' community, groundwork will lead for the expansion of the student's identity to be included in the rule in a larger national and international context. Number 2, propagate Filipino as the language of literacy. The policy aims to propagate Filipino as a language of literacy, to cultivate and develop Filipino as a language of scholarly discourse, and to further its development as a national language with the signing of 1987 Constitution. Filipino and English are mandated to be used as a media of instructions. Number 3, development of Filipino as a linguistic symbol of national unity and identity. The Philippine Bilingual Education Policy emphasizes the need of development of literacy in Filipino as a linguistic symbol of national unity and identity, and English as a language of wider communication. Number 4, cultivate and elaborate Filipino as a language of scholarly discourse. Example, continue its intellectualization and maintain English as an international language for the Philippines and as the non-exclusive language of science and technology. Since competence in the use of both Filipino and English is one of the goals of bilingual education policy, continuing improvement in the teaching of both languages shall be the responsibility of the whole educational system. tertiary level institutions shall be lead in continuing intellectualization of Filipino. The program of intellectualization, however, shall also be pursued in both elementary and secondary levels. The Department of Education, Culture and Sports shall cooperate with the National Language Commission. It should be also provide the means by which the language policy can be implemented with the cooperation of government and non-government organizations. Moreover, as defined in the implementing guidelines, bilingual education means the separate use of Filipino and English as a media of instructions in different subject areas. Moreover, on May 17, 2003, Executive Order Number 210 entitled Establishing Policy to Strengthen the Use of English Language as a Medium of Instruction in the Educational System was issued by President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. In addition to this order, DepEd Memorandum Number 181 Series of 2003 was disseminated to the field. The order provides that the English language will be used as a medium of instruction in the educational system to develop the aptitude, competence, and proficiency of the students in English language to maintain and improve their competitive edge in emerging and fast-growing local and international industries, particularly in the area of information and communication technology. Let's proceed to the issues and concerns of bilingual education policy. Let's take a look at this one. Weak verbal skills. Once upon a time, bilingualism was considered as harmful to one's verbal development and IQ. But that was the beginning of the century. Since then, we've conducted numerous research and studies to point out the problems involved in bilingualism. Bilinguals know fewer words of any semantic category in comparison to the people that speak fluently only one language. Their vocabulary seems to be somewhat smaller than those monolingual speakers. Bilingual education plays a crucial role in our development because it improves our cognitive skills. Students that know a second language perform better in tasks that call for creative thinking, pattern recognition, and problem solving. Young learners develop a greater linguistic awareness and more complex understanding of their native language. Once again, I am Mary Grace Densing. Thank you so much and God bless.
I am Jaylin Medacedeño, your facilitator for today. Now we will discuss about the language policy of Commission on Higher Education or Higher Education Act of 1994. Before we proceed to the evolution of CHED, we'll define first what is CHED. According to its definition, CHED is a governing body covering both public and private higher education institution as well as degree-granting programs in all tertiary educational institutions in the Philippines. It is also to promote relevant and quality higher education. So that means that this was designed to prepare professionals for practice in primary and secondary schools in the Philippines. Also, CHED gives an opportunity for the students who cannot afford to pay their tuitions and allowances. So we can say that CHED helps a lot for students and parents. It is not impossible for the students to reach their dreams, not like before that students have a hard time to find money to pay their tuition. Now we have a lot of scholars that has been offered by the governments. So sometimes we'll be confused about the difference between the DepEd and CHED. Now the difference between them is that DepEd is for basic education from kindergarten to the K-12 curriculum, while CHED is responsible for higher education, university, and TESDA, etc. For the evolution of CHED, it was established on May 8, 1994 through Republic Act 7722 or the Higher Education Act of 1994, which was authored by Senator Francisco Tatad. So the creation of CHED was part of a broad agenda for reforms in the country's education system, outlined by the Congressional Commission on Education. Now we will proceed to the language policy of CHED. So it remains in the consonance with the bilingual education policy embodied Index ordered number 52. So I believe that you have already some knowledge about what is bilingual since it was already been discussed by the previous reporters, but I'll just give you a short background or overview. Now, according to the study of language policies in the Philippines by Clemencia Espiritu, that bilingual education aims at the achievement of competence in both Filipino and English at the national level through the teaching of both languages in their use as medium of instruction at all levels. So there are actually many definitions of bilingualism that are ranked. According to J. Noel Wynn, published in 2004 by The Controversy, those definitions are ranked from a minimal proficiency in two languages to an advanced level of proficiency which allow the speaker to function and appear as a native-like speaker of the two languages. A person may describe himself as bilingual but may mean only the ability to communicate and converse orally. Another person, when describing himself as bilingual, may mean that the ability to read two or more languages. But the problem here is the concern of education. In fact, a person should be called bilingual with having the ability to communicate and read two or more languages, one as well as the second. Nowadays, it is not surprising to meet people comfortably speaking two or more languages, right? The bilingual education policy of 1987 originally promulgated in 1974, which aims for enhanced learning through English and Filipino and the development of a bilingual nation competent in the use of both Filipino and English. So according to Burlungan on 2009, English is to be used as the language in teaching English, mathematics, and science, while Filipino is for other subjects. So therefore, it is clear that both teachers and students would solely use English in English language, mathematics, and science classes, and solely Filipino in all other subjects. However, study shows the very low level proficiency in the two languages of both teachers and students. As a conclusion of our discussion, language policy of CHED is bilingual education in which we are using right now. It is very important to know these policies for us to be aware on our medium of instruction inside and out of the school. That's all.
Using Filipino language in our everyday living would be a great step in order to strengthen and value our national language. Filipino language is the representation of who we are, and it makes the Filipino connected, which intended to have peace and unity. Hi, this is Christine Bocadon, your facilitator for today, and I will be discussing to you the Executive Order Number 335, Series of 1988. But before anything else, let me ask you first. Why is it important to promote the use of Filipino language in all transactions, communications, and correspondence? Alright, now let's proceed to the formal discussion. In line to the 1987 Constitution of the Philippines, as what Stephanie Maurilio reported that Section 7 states that for purposes of communication and instruction, the official languages of the Philippines are Filipino, and, until otherwise provided by law, English. In relation to this policy, former President Corazon Aquino ordered all government bureaus, offices, agencies, and instrumentalities to take steps in using the Filipino language in transactions, communications, and correspondence. Executive Order Number 335, signed by Corazon Aquino in 1988, August 25. This order is practically a reiteration of several orders and memoranda issued by President Ferdinand E. Marcos. The following are the instructions of order under Executive Order Number 335 Series of 1988. First, to take steps to enhance the use of Filipino in official transactions, communications, and correspondence in the respective offices and national and local. All governmental entities should do an action in order to promote the Filipino language in the respective offices. According to the previous chairman of Commission on Filipino Language, who is Virgilio Almario, up to 90% of government agencies use English language in correspondence and governmental documents. Basically, it is one of the challenges in the implementation of this order. Therefore, government agencies must do something by following this specific memorandum. Second, assign one or more personnel as may be necessary in every office to take charge of all communications and correspondence written in Filipino. From that point, you will realize that it is not an easy job. You need to translate all the legal documents into Filipino, word per word. Therefore, it is noticeable that in order to achieve this order, they should have to exert so much effort by having an additional workforce or personnel who are knowledgeable enough in the field of Filipino language. At the regional seminar held in Malolos City, Commission sa Wikang Filipino stated that it is necessary to assign more staff as needed to each office to handle correspondence written in Filipino. Third, translate into Filipino names of offices, buildings, and signboards of offices, divisions or its instrumentalities, and if so desired, imprint below in small letters the English text. This is one of the instructions that recommend an action. One of the examples in the application of this order is the Sangguniang Panglungsod ng Davao that is located in the city of Davao, San Pedro Street. Instead of putting Davao City Council, but they translated it into Filipino version, which is very important to empower the national language. Therefore, this specific governmental entity has complied the order of Executive Number 335, which is the translation of the names of offices into Filipino language. Fourth, Filipinize the oath of office for government officials and personnel. An oath is a public pledge that a person will perform some action or duty, generally with the promise of doing so truthfully, acknowledge his commitment to the obligations that would be assigned to him. According to Executive Order Number 292, Section 40, oaths of office for public officers and employees of the government should be mandated, and the copies of the oath shall be deposited with the Civil Service Commission. Therefore, it is one of the legal documents. Thus, for the memorandum to be fully effective, all legal papers should be translated into Filipino version as well. This would be a step to strengthen the Filipino language. Lastly, make as part of the training programs for personnel development in every office the proficiency in the use of Filipino in official transactions, communications, and correspondence. Learning is a lifelong process. Even though those personnel are good in translating in Filipino, but they need a proper guidance and seminars in order to enhance their skills. For instance, Commission on the Filipino Language conducted a seminar entitled Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino, Seminar on Proper Writing of Official Correspondence Using Filipino Language. The purpose of this seminar is to show the proper way of writing in terms of transactions, communications, and correspondence using the national language. And this is very beneficial to the government officials or personnel who are assigned to this job. To ensure that this memorandum is continuous, Virgilio Almario said that CFL is ready to work with fellow government agencies to develop program for personal development, training of each office in the use of the Filipino language in written communications. Since Commission on the Filipino Language is the one that formulates such programs or projects in propagating the national language. For instance, information campaign about the importance of national language, conducting some seminars or symposium to enhance the skills of all government officials or personnel, and lastly, CFL should monitor all the governmental entities, such as agencies, department offices, if they complied and follow regarding the said order.
Good day, everyone. Today, I am your facilitator and I will discuss the next order number 11 series 1987 or Republic Act number 8190. Like, what exactly our 8190 is all about and how this Republic Act affects the language policies. Can I have the opinion of Ms. Umpad? Thank you, Ms. Umpad, for the answer. Yes, I solemnly agree to what Ms. Umpad answered because according to Republic Act 8190 Section 1, the applicant who is a resident of the barangay, municipality, city, or province where the minimum qualification and requirements should be prioritized to be hired of the school, in which it is strengthened by DepEd Order number 3, Series 2013. It specifies that the ruling applies to the appointment or assignment of teachers in all public elementary and secondary schools and other learning centers under DepEd. In filling up vacant positions, priority shall be given to bona fide residents of the barangay, municipality, city, or province where the school is located, in no particular order. The order specified bona fide residents refer to a qualified applicant who is prior to appointment a resident for a period of at least 6 months of a particular barangay, municipality, city, or province where the school is. This must be evidenced by legal documents to be identified by DepEd. Now, moving on to the next topic, which is the policies of language affects the Filipino learners in every region. That was according to Ms. Morillo on her topic, 1987 Constitution in Article 14, Section 7 of the 1987. Constitution states, for purposes of communication, instructions to the official languages of the Philippines are Filipino, and until otherwise provided by law, English. The regional languages are the auxiliary official languages in the region and shall serve as auxiliary media of instructions therein. What can you say about this, Ms. Ganchao? Is RA 8190 can affect the language policies in the Philippines? Thank you very much for the participation, Ms. Ganchao. I agree with Ms. Ganchao's opinion because according to DO 52 Series 1987, the 1987 policy on bilingual education in Section 2, in consonance with this mandate, the declared policy of the Department of Education and Culture on bilingualism in the schools. NBE Resolution number 73-7, Series 1973. The Department of Education, Culture, and Sports hereby promulgates the following policy. The policy on bilingual education aims at the achievements of the competence in both Filipino and English at the national level through the teaching of both languages and their use as media of instruction at all levels. The regional languages shall be used as auxiliary languages in grade 1 and 2. The aspiration of the Filipino to enable them to perform their functions and duties as Filipino citizens and in English in order to meet the needs of the country in the community of nations. That's strengthened by Adrianosa Rodrigo A. 2014 that having rather RA 8190 or also known as localization law is a big help for the students and teacher because they both understand and know each other's native language because they came from the same community. Moving forward to the challenges to follow the rules and guidelines of Republic Act 8190. Can I hear your opinion, Ms. Rabbit? What do you think is the challenges in the following the rules and guidelines of Republic Act 8190? Yes, that's right, Ms. Rabbit. Thank you, because according to Sunstart Philippines, in their article titled Mendoza, hiring guidelines for teacher depends qualifications and evaluation is high. It is hard for those applicants whose only average level qualification. Also, according to Agnes Solaguna, 3rd District Representative, many people these days to take advantage of their power. They use the power to hire anyone from their family even though it's not qualified for the positions. Now, let's talk about the importance of RE 8190. Yes, I hear you, Ms. Campo. Thank you, Ms. Campo. Very true, Ms. Campo, because according to Representative Emil Ong, it is easy now to hire people for the teaching position because RE 8190, this can help local people for their career and growth. He also said Republic Act 8190, known as an act granting priority residence of the barangay, municipality, or city where the school is located in the appointment or assignment of public school teachers, was enacted to best serve the purpose of the Magna Carta for public school teachers. And that's all my report. I will give the spotlight to Ms. Nivado.
Despite the number of studies confirming that learning is faster using the native language, but still government officials are still pushing for the adoption of English as a medium of instructions here in the schools of the Philippines. This is Therese Liavado excavating the Executive Order number 210 series of 2003, establishing the policy to strengthen the use of English language as a medium of instruction in the educational system. Now here is the question, what do you think is the purpose of implementing Executive Order number 210? Anyone would like to answer? In this constitution, it provides the purpose of communication and instruction, whereas it is declared policy of the state to promote education as a means to achieve and maintain an accelerating rate of economic development and social progress. A check on the bills filed in 14th Congress shows that there are 3 bills seeking for enhancement of the use of English as a medium of instruction. The 3 bills propose the use of English, Filipino, or regional languages as MOI in all subjects from preschools to grade 2. They prescribe the use of English for all academic subjects from grade 3 up to secondary level. According to 1987 of the Philippine Constitution, this petition proposed by former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo last May 17, 2003, primarily deals with the establishment of policies strengthening and proclaiming the use of English language as a medium of instruction in the Philippine educational system. As stated by Melancio 2006 in Arab News, former PGMA had instructed the DepEd to return the use of English as the medium of instruction in the schools of the Philippines, as she was alarmed with the continued decline of English proficiency among the public and private schools here in our country. She has stated that Filipinos' fluency in English has fallen apart. What do you think is the reason why Filipino fluency in English has fallen apart? Arroyo said, as cited by Melancio, the world as we know is now a global village. Being not able to speak the universal language could lead to disadvantages. How we are able to elevate our status as a nation in general. So we need to support the petition of a great advantage to upgrade the shrinking status of our country into a global competitive village. A group of traditional Filipinos believe that using English, especially in public schools, deteriorates the educational system in the Philippines and put poorer students at disadvantage. But why? What do you think? Other Filipinos believe that using English only deteriorates the educational system in the Philippines. Some answered that the use of English policy may be a factor in students with weaker English language skills, dropping out schools, for example, in a classroom setup. Why a lot of students are having a low grades in their oral communication activities? What do you think? The main reason is they are not participating because they are required to speak in English. And when they speak in English, they would feel like intimidated and can't keep up. That's why they think this policy scares or would scare the country more than it helps. However, those who advocate this executive order argue that if we'll keep our minds closed and do away with this implementation of the policy, saying that it would only alienate each one of us from our cultural heritage, how are we going to improve since competitive workforce will come into our picture? So Friedrich Naumann, 2007, recognized that to speak and write in English in this age of globalization is necessary, and if we would like to compete in the knowledge-based world, and one way of developing is that through imposing the said policy in the schools. According to Melancio, he quoted that if we look at the things realistically, it seems like our public educational system is not set up for this yet, right? As we can observe in the public schools or even in the private schools, some teachers are using Visayan and Filipino language while they are discussing. I will insert the opinion of the NetBlog PH in this discussion. His answer may be because the teacher could really express the discussion through Filipino. But my question is how the students could express himself in speaking in English if the teacher are not practicing itself. Speaking English is important since it is the international language in every field of studies. Then let us be practical with our views. I believe that every Filipinos need to communicate with another people not only in our country but globally, since we primarily are trading our products abroad and promoting our culture to the world. A poor country like us can only compete with those big ones if we know how to speak the language. Here is my point. How many percent of the Filipinos are fluent in speaking English? According to the most recent updates, more than 90% of the Filipinos understand and speak English. Melancio added that Philippines is considered as one of the world's best English-speaking countries. Many foreigners go to our country just to study English. If we look at it, our countrymen are fluent in English. Hence, the more reason to make it the medium of instructions. And it provides a great age for us. Besides, if we want to progress as a nation, then let us open our minds and be creative. Let us make use and develop what's already there. And in fact, we're really good at. As I have mentioned earlier about the purpose of implementing this executive order, here is my another question. Is the implementation of this executive order will dissolve our national language? Implementing this executive order is not a matter of dissolving our national language and breaking our culture, nor blending our nation to what is hip with the modern society. It doesn't make us less patriotic even. It doesn't mean that if we support the proposition, we are setting aside our love for our country. Of course not. Our love for our country will forever stay, just our national language will be forever Filipino. The thing is, we are concerned and more than love for our country that we are thinking and making a remedy so that we won't be driven downward by neighboring countries. We can be patriotic without being too nationalist and traditional in an ever-changing world. And if we decide to drop English as our medium of instruction, this would be a great loss for us Filipinos, most especially for the poor. Because they won't have a chance to study English for free. We are now in the age of global competitive economy. We as a country have to move forward and successfully compete globally. Let us promote the use of English language as a medium of instructions for our nation to grow. Executive Order Number 210 Series of 2003 establishing the policy to strengthen the use of English language as a medium of instruction in educational system, so DepEd Memorandum Number 81 Series of 2003 issued provides that English language be used as a medium of instructions to develop aptitude, competence of students in the language to maintain and improve the competitive edge of emerging and fast-growing local and international industries, particularly in the area of ICT. In DepEd Memorandum Number 81 Series of 2003, it is stated there the information and guidelines of all concerns enclose a copy of Executive Order Number 210. This will end our discussion of Executive Order Number 210 Series of 2003 and the DepEd Memorandum, and I hope you have understood already the purpose of this proposition.